The glass walls of the corporate tower shimmered like a symbol of success, but inside something darker brewed. When Maya walked into that sleek boardroom clutching her resume, every eye judged before a single word was spoken. Her qualifications were met with smirks, her confidence mistaken for arrogance. The CEO's laughter echoed through the room, cold and dismissive. No one expected that the woman they mocked would soon hold the fate of a $500 million deal in her hands. And when the truth unfolded, the entire company would never look at her the same way again. Maya Williams had always believed that talent spoke louder than appearance. Growing up in a small neighborhood where opportunity felt like a distant dream, she built her own ladder, one language, one degree, one achievement at a time. By 29, she could communicate fluently in 9 languages and had worked with international firms across Europe and Asia. Her dream was to join Flamant Global, a multinational powerhouse known for billion-dollar mergers and ruthless efficiency. When she received the interview invitation, she rehearsed every answer, pressed her only suit, and arrived early, heart-pounding but hopeful. The office tower was breathtaking, glass, steel, and status. Yet as she stepped out of the elevator, the subtle stares began. Receptionists exchanged glances. One whispered something under her breath. It wasn't the kind of hostility you could prove, but it lingered, heavy and invisible. Inside the conference room, a panel of executives sat behind a polished oak table. At the head was Richard Hales, the CEO, sharp suit, silver hair, and a smile that never reached his eyes. As Maya introduced herself, she noticed the flicker of amusement between him and his colleagues. Her resume, impressive and detailed, was being passed around like a novelty. Someone chuckled when they reached the section listing her language skills. Still, Maya kept her composure. She spoke clearly, confidently, answering every question with precision. But the more she impressed, the more dismissive Richard became. He leaned back in his chair, smirking as if her competence was an inconvenience. And when the laughter finally broke the surface, echoing through the glass walls, Maya realized this interview was no test of skill. It was a test of dignity. The laughter still rang in her ears as she stepped out of the boardroom that day. The HR manager's polite smile did little to soften the sting. "We'll be in touch," they'd said, words that often meant never. She had faced rejection before, but this was different. It wasn't about her skills, her experience, or her worth. It was about who they saw when she walked in, and who they decided she couldn't be. Weeks passed, and Maya buried herself in freelance consulting work. Her gift for languages had always been her anchor. She translated contracts, mediated calls between foreign partners, and built a quiet reputation for reliability. She refused to let bitterness consume her until fate came knocking again. One morning, a call came from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was nervous. "Ms. Williams, this is Daniel from Flamant Global. We need urgent assistance. Our team is negotiating a high-value contract with a European firm, and we're facing a communication issue." Maya almost hung up, but curiosity stopped her. "Why me?" she asked. There was a pause before Daniel replied, "Because you're the only one fluent in all 9 languages the stakeholders use." Within hours, she was back in the same building where she'd once been humiliated. The irony wasn't lost on her. As she walked through the lobby, the same receptionist looked up in surprise. Maya was no longer a candidate. She was a consultant, summoned to fix a crisis. Upstairs, chaos unfolded. Executives scrambled through documents, translators argued, and tension filled the air. Richard Hales, the CEO who had once laughed at her, was there. But this time the smirk was gone. The company's $500 million deal with multiple international partners was crumbling. Miscommunications had caused mistrust, and the foreign delegates were ready to walk away. When Maya entered the boardroom, silence fell. The delegates turned toward her, and she greeted each of them fluently. French, German, Mandarin, Arabic, and more, each phrase delivered with ease and respect. Their expressions softened. They recognized her not as an assistant, but as an equal. Maya began mediating, translating the nuances that others had missed: tone, cultural context, subtle meanings hidden between words. What had been confusion turned to clarity. She navigated through tension with grace, bridging voices that had been lost in translation. Hours passed, and by the time the meeting ended, signatures filled the contract pages. The deal was saved. From the corner of her eye, Maya caught Richard watching, a mixture of shock, relief, and something else, shame. He approached her afterward, words catching in his throat. But she didn't wait to hear an apology. She simply smiled, thanked the team, and walked out of the boardroom with her head held high. What she didn't know was that news of the rescue spread fast, and her name was now echoing through every floor of Flamant Global. By morning, Flamant Global was buzzing. Emails flooded Richard Hales's inbox, messages from board members, investors, and international partners, all praising the brilliant consultant who salvaged their deal. The irony burned quietly in him. He had dismissed Maya as unworthy, and now her expertise had done what his entire executive team couldn't. That afternoon, Maya was invited back, this time to the top floor. The same glass elevator that had once felt like a ride toward humiliation now opened to applause. Executives who hadn't met her eyes before stood to shake her hand. But Maya's expression stayed calm, her grace unshaken. She wasn't here for validation. She was here to finish what she started. Richard stood by the window, the city skyline behind him, rehearsing his apology. But Maya's presence silenced him. She wasn't angry, just poised, collected, unbreakable. She spoke only once, offering final clarifications for the deal. Her command of detail, her professionalism, her fluency, everything he had once mocked, now held the room's full attention. When she finished, the room erupted in praise. The company's international partners insisted she be brought on as a permanent advisor. A contract was drafted immediately, higher pay, full benefits, and global representation rights. The same board that had once overlooked her was now fighting to keep her. Richard extended his hand, eyes lowered. "You saved us," he admitted quietly. But Maya didn't take his hand right away. Instead, she looked him in the eye. Not with anger, but with clarity. "No," she said softly. "I did what I was trained to do, what you never gave me a chance to prove." Then she turned away, leaving him frozen in the silence of his own arrogance. Outside, the city lights glimmered like distant stars. Maya stepped into the cool evening air, her reflection glowing in the glass doors behind her. For the first time, she wasn't chasing opportunity. It was chasing her. Weeks later, Maya's name had become synonymous with the company's turnaround. Flamant Global's press release praised her as the linguistic strategist who restored international trust and revived a failing partnership. Her image appeared on business forums and leadership articles, a symbol of quiet brilliance breaking through systemic bias. Yet behind every headline, Maya remained grounded. She hadn't set out to make a statement, only to be seen for her work, not her skin. Richard Hales, meanwhile, found himself confronting the mirror more than the market. The laughter that once came so easily now haunted him. He replayed the moment she had stood before him, confident, prepared, overlooked. For the first time, he realized how much talent had been dismissed under the weight of prejudice disguised as professionalism. He began introducing diversity reforms across the firm, mentorship programs, blind recruitment panels, inclusive leadership workshops. Some called it guilt. Others called it growth. But for Richard, it was a quiet debt he would never fully repay. Maya accepted the advisory position, but on her own terms. Full creative control, authority to build a multilingual inclusion program, and the freedom to mentor underrepresented employees. She transformed the once exclusive boardroom into a space of voices, accents, ideas, and perspectives blending like the languages she spoke. Months later, at a global conference, Maya stood before a crowd of executives, translators, and students. She didn't tell them about her rejection, or the laughter, or the sting of prejudice. Instead, she shared one truth. The world doesn't need more voices silenced by judgment. It needs more ears willing to listen beyond the accent. The applause that followed wasn't for a hero, but for a reminder that brilliance has no color and respect has no translation. And somewhere, watching from the back of the room, Richard nodded slowly, not in pity, not in pride, but in the quiet acknowledgement of a lesson learned far too late.